But I want to talk a little bit about the Network for Student Success. And this is a federally funded initiative at Pulaski Technical College. Pulaski Technical College, whether you believe it or not, was designated as a predominantly black institution. We have about 51% of African American population. And of course, we were graduating before I came, less than 10% African American males. There's probably 12 to 1,500 that are on campus now and graduating less than 10%. And of course, that's very discouraging when you think about, an institution of that size and the opportunity, to really do something about that. And so the Network for Student Success was brought on campus as a result of that funding, and it's a pretty significant, grant, 2-year grant, roughly $1 million. To get in, and we've hired staff. Case managers is basically the gist of it. We have 4 case managers. Everybody works with a caseload of students. I'm the director, and their caseload is managed really we try to be creative in some of the things that we do. One of the biggest things, our biggest charge, of course, is retention. We're trying to retain and help students to persist, to graduation. We're trying to improve the GPAs of our students, and we're also trying to help graduate more students. That's in a nutshell. But there's so much more. Because I want you to really, start to understand when I talk about the type of student that walks on a 2-year college campus is a little different than the students that come to 4-year schools in some instances. For some reason, people in the community say, go to college. You find a kid who's not doing well, he didn't do well in high school, he's in the streets, as we talk about. I know Ms. Phillips mentioned that a couple times. A lot of those guys that show up on that campus they don't know what to expect. They think they're going to high school. And so they'll come to the college with the same expectations that they fighting and gang banging in college. And those things are something that, of course, when Ms. Broadway talked about, just those different classes, you bring those poverty class expectations and mannerisms and all those things to this middle class environment, there's going to be a clash. And there's enough blame to go around because the middle class educators don't understand the poverty class students, and vice versa. So there's a clash that happens, and so our role becomes almost a mediator of sorts. And we're trying to translate this language. We're trying to help staff and faculty understand that it's not directed towards you, or it's not something for you to be afraid of. And we're trying to help students understand how to code switch. I'm a little ahead of myself here. Thinking about just the retention and the graduation stuff, we wanted to come in with some academic initiatives. So one of the things that we did was we started to do some course redesign, because we needed to reintroduce some things to the college campus. We needed to help our faculty and staff learn how to relate to African American males, and we needed them to understand that all African American males don't bring the same issues to the table. Okay? And so the network, who's made up of 4 very distinct personalities in terms of coaches, kind of represent the different classes of males, if you will. And when I talk about those red students, those are those students that are, as I said, they come, a lot of them are felons, roughly 20% of them are felons. And they are going to deal with issues like substance abuse, anger management. They lack those social connections. They don't necessarily value education. Sometimes, those are the guys that just come to pick up the refund checks. And so they have a certain demeanor about them. Then when we talk about that next level, what I call yellow, is we're trying to get those red students to transition to yellow. But, one of the things we realize is that those guys probably aren't going to stick around long enough to get to yellow. If they just came for the check, they can get that after that second check disbursement. And a lot of them won't come back. Simple reality. So what we want to do is put something in place that's going to hook you. And so right now, since Ms. West is here, I'll talk about one of our goals is to secure this Perkins position, so that we can have a CTE advisor focusing on those certificates and trades. And so those red students are really going to be guided toward that to say, hey, let's get you something. And so we created an academic trade link at Pulaski Tech, which is, it has the academic side because they take tech math and computer concepts, and then they have a career readiness class. And then on the other side, their trades, they can take any trade that the school offers. And so on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, they're a linked community, learning in community, a group of students that take classes together. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they go to these trade classes. Well, that link is where we have tutors that are working in the class with those students, and then they kind of create this unity. You know, they do little group projects, the portfolios, they do resume writing and critiquing, but then we also bring in people to talk anger management, because we did a needs assessment, and a lot of these guys said, I have problems with anger, substance abuse. And so on Fridays, there's somebody that comes in and addresses those issues, because 9 times out of 10, they're not going to go get that help on their own. And so we put that person in the class in a safe environment, because there are felons in the class with you. You're a felon, I'm a felon, and then you're not just felons, but guys who live by default. You know, a lot of times, you know, guys are not felons just because they hadn't got caught, but, you know, sometimes they're living just that street life. You know, we talk about it, the hood, the gut, the block, the game, the system, you know what I'm talking about. And so those guys kind of fit in that class, and they create a community, and then there's a charge. We've kind of created this charge to say it's you against the world, as Tupac would say. And so you got those guys pushing for something. They want to win. 62% of them completed this past semester, and of the 7, I think it was 7 of them that didn't, 6 or 7 of them that didn't, we had a couple go back to prison. We had a couple that fell off just for street stuff. But the ones that pushed too, and actually there were 10 of them that completed, 9 of them re-enrolled this semester. And the one is planning to come back next semester. And they're taking trade classes. There's some very significant stuff that happens even outside of that classroom, because we had one guy who was the best student in the class, highest grades, but he missed 8 days, and he had to get dropped. Well, he called me cussing me out, because I knew him since he was like 13, 14 years old. He was one of my kids that was in the gang program, and he didn't expect me to drop him. And so just got that little dynamic. But I told him, when you're ready, and because he has to get that stuff figured out. He has to get it, how do I get to class on time? Because it's his life. And so as we start to work through some of that stuff, and he has some other issues, but sadly enough, he comes back and enrolls in the class this semester, and then he violated his parole, and so he's gone for 6 more months. But it's not an ending, because but when he comes back out, the last place he had success, he's gonna come back to. And so the story continues. That's to be continued. We'll talk about it. But this is just some cohort retention on 179 students in our original cohort of the program, and that re-enrolled in the 5th term. 40% of them returned, and our target was 25%, because that's what the 2007 numbers, you know, showed with being retained of African American males. We also, now when I talk about those reds, let's put them there, because like I told you from the beginning, we're not all reds. And that's one of the things that I try to just say that over and over again, so when people say black males, you don't just lump us all in this one group and think that we're all doing the same stuff. And so when I talk about yellow, that's another category. And so most of these guys, they realize that school is important. They want to be there. But if they spent a lot of time in the red area, then those extenuating circumstances sometimes just catch up. You have kids, you have bad relationships with the children's mother, you don't have reliable transportation, you live from house to house. And so those are just very real life things that we try to help them address definitely by helping connect them to social outlets, but human services and things like that, but also trying to help them meet other people who overcame those obstacles. And so now you're in a group of guys that basically have been through some stuff, and they figured out how to make it in school and deal with some of it. We got guys living homeless shelter, catch the bus to school, but they're trying. And so one of the goals of that yellow area is really to focus on that social engagement. So we're trying to get them connected to the school, because the reds, like I said, we're just trying to get you there and get you some success. I forgot to mention that they're going to work on the work keys as well. And then when they're done, one of our goals is to get them a career readiness certificate and to get them a certificate of proficiency in something. And then try to re-recruit them back to put them on the academic side and get them on the academic track. And so as we move them into that yellow, they're doing more of these socially engaging things. And so one of the things is this first year experience class. College seminar, as we call it, but we've designed one specifically for African American male issues. And so it's open, of course, to all students, and sometimes we have other students that enroll, but really focusing on a lot of the issues. And I know Michael talked a little bit about some of the things that some of the books and changing some of that reading, making the reading interesting. So as opposed to the rest of the college seminar classes, they read Warriors Don't Cry, and our students, they do We Beat the Street by the Three Doctors. And one of the things that happens in those class discussions, they do a little thing where they in these small groups and they act out their parts. Well, they present the parts in the book, and it's interesting to hear some of those stories that they can relate to. And then because the book ends with success, they start to get on that path and they want to write a story similar. And this is just that academic trade link. It talks real quick about the students that career seminar, 67% of them completed with an A, B, or C, computer concepts, tech, math, and then we had that 62% of those students that completed. Here's a quick comparison of the college seminar class, and this is just one of the classes. The other one was slightly lower than this, I think, on each one of those categories. But I just wanted, one of the things that we use to measure this college seminar class is not only how they do in our class, because, you know, just mind you, we do have our success coaches actually teach that class. And so, of course, you would think that they're going to be throwing fat pitches and, you know, they're going to give grades and that type of thing. So we weren't necessarily measuring how many of our students, we did measure how many of them earned a grade in that class, but we also wanted to know how did they do compared in all their other classes compared to other college seminar or first year experience classes. And so this is some numbers. ABC for our college seminar class, and then African American students in other sections were at 53%, and then all other college seminar classes, notice that 67%. And so comparably across the board, you know, that's where we were. But then those retention numbers are pretty significant when you think about how many of the guys that were in that linked community concept and that were being instructed by somebody who was able to engage them around conversations that you can't necessarily have in public. And like, as Michael mentioned, in our spaces, it's just real interesting to see some of those results. And so we've offered 5 semesters, and they're typically pretty close to that same result. This is us. You know, a lot of the guys, and there are about, right now, somewhere close to 400 students that have been impacted by the network. All of them aren't necessarily case managed, but, you know, they each have a different piece. Let me go back to this slide. And if you notice, Dr. Bakke there in the bright orange shirt is the president of Pulaski Tech. And this picture was important for me. I've been trying to get it where I wanted him in the picture with all of these black male students, and those females there are our staff, you know, work study. And you can imagine if you bring work study, because their voice sounds different on the phone when you're calling them and saying, hey, come in for your meeting. Those voices help get guys to come in for their meetings, and they do a great job of just setting the tone in there. But, you know, just in thinking through, one of the things I mentioned that we named this program the Network for Student Success, because one of the things that, you know, we're still trying to work through is Pulaski Tech has a very low ratio of African American instructors, full-time instructors, and adjuncts for that matter too. I think 1 dean, 1 vice president. And so those are some very significant things. And so understanding that, we didn't want to come in with a program that was going to alienate people, because we had to figure out how do we help the system that we have, people that might not be able to relate, and not to say that they all don't, because we have some instructors that have been through some things that can relate to these guys. And so this marginalized student concept kind of comes to the forefront, and we're saying, how can we give this teacher tools so that there is a place where you can come and be a part of the group? And so the network becomes the concept. How am I doing? Okay. What does that mean? That's it? Okay. All right. Well, just look at the pictures. We took a trip. we took a trip to New York, and I just want to put that out there because that was a pretty significant thing. We're here at Medgar Evers College with Dr. Green, and she's, you know, and that was a real powerful experience because we got a guy, he's just kind of talking Brooklyn to us and giving it, and again, I mentioned marginalized, so these are some guys that are also a part of the program that are in one of our meetings because they have issues too. Same thing with the class. We're receiving a Black Hall of Fame grant from Mr. Stewart there, you see it, and this is another Chef Jeff. We had a luncheon at the Peabody with Chef Jeff, who had a TV show. Chef, he was a felon. He did a TV show and all of this. But we had a luncheon where it was all felons sitting at the table at the that Duck Bill. Capriccio Grill, that's it, yeah. But in that center table, and they were bringing out all these fancy hors d'oeuvres and types, and the guys, like I said, everybody at the table except me and my 2 staff were felons. And that was just a real powerful experience because what it did, it gave us some credibility on the street that really helps even now. And then chess, you see that slide of them playing chess. And that was really significant because the guy that started that, he did 16 years in prison, and one of the things that really helped him was chess. And so he wanted to start this program, but that kind of became our thing. And so we'll have these chess tournaments in the hallway, as opposed to dominoes or spades. We wanted you to see black men thinking. And so you put that chessboard out there and people equate that, because most folks don't know how to play chess. And so they automatically assume that you're smart if you're playing chess. But we wanted to create that image around the program. And just as I walk away, because I can feel this warm stare, those blue students are at that next level. And one of the things that happens with those blue students is, they want to be out. They're encouraged to finish, and they just need that additional support. And so oftentimes we're going to encourage them to get involved with the student organizations. We're going to support them and help them become the president and help, coaching them on things they need to do. And then those green students are the ones that oftentimes are all dressed up with no place to go. And so you're trying to connect them to social engagements. I take them, like, for instance, I'll be speaking to the Rotary Club next month, and I'm taking a group of guys with me and introducing them to people, hoping that they can get invited and be a part of your social circle so you can give them real life mentoring advice as opposed to that kind you give students. I had some LSAMP, UAPB. We have a relationship with UAPB where we send students down, and that's one of the things they really get excited about, because they come and they get to see other students look like them doing well in math and sciences. And so this summer I think we're sending 2 students. We had, I don't know how, last couple years we've sent a handful of students that have done well. One of those guys has gone on to U of A. He's an engineer up there doing some big things, and he's a felon on the campus of U of A. I'm done. I know y'all hungry. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. Isn't this great? They just have so much to say, really. It's fantastic. One of the things that Mr. Washington did fail to mention was that our Black Male Achievers did receive the Student Organization of the Year Award on Thursday. Last but certainly not least, I am really, really proud to bring to the podium one of our very own. We're always so happy to have him to come back home. He is the former Student Government Association president and currently a student attending the Clinton School of Public Service, and as mentioned earlier, he will be defending his thesis on tomorrow. So we're even more proud that he would take just a moment and join us today. So without further ado, Mr. Graylin Johnson.
Thank you so much, Ms. Burrow, for that introduction. I first just want to start off by thanking Dr. Davis and Dr. Benjamin and all those folks responsible for inviting me here today. It is always, get that on camera, an honor to come back to, like I tell people all the time, a place that has invested so much in me personally and professionally. I will always provide in any way that I can for this institution. I want to thank Mr. Moody and Mr. Washington for their very moving and compelling testimonies, and my sister from Chicago earlier. And I really appreciate Mr. Moody for pointing out that there's no single portrait of the African American story. The varied ecological circumstances of black families and the range of experiences continues to produce a myriad of family types and outcomes that one of which I will talk about today, and one which was my sister from Chicago. It's difficult not to be greatly disturbed by the disproportionate struggles African American males continue to face in achieving success. Many of you have probably heard of or read the Schott Foundation's 50-state report on public education of black males. That report was actually the report I used most in my master's research, which reported that 47% of African Americans in public high schools were not graduating with their white counterparts, and 1 in 3 were in the criminal justice system. 1 in 3 black males were in the criminal justice system. So indeed, I feel a very deep sense of personal urgency to do something to disrupt and redirect the negative trajectories that that many African American males are faced with. Why am I standing up here? The university, I was asked to share a little bit about my story, where I come from, and how that has sort of subsequently, what sort of transpired that led to my outcomes. Whenever you see glasses, I was telling Dr. Blakely, when I have glasses, it usually means that I'm in an emotional place. This story is hard. It's hard to tell a story like this without getting emotional, and I purposefully didn't write text because I suppose someday I'll write a book, but I purposefully did not use a ton of text because it's difficult sometimes to relive some of those experiences. But still, I am grateful that I can share some of those circumstances. My convictions, my feelings, my perspective towards service is all deeply rooted in my family's own past lived experiences. 90% of my upbringing found my family faced with intense social and economic hardship. I am one of 12 children born to two parents who did not complete high school. I grew up in neighborhoods that were pervaded with poverty, drugs, prostitution, gang life, and a whole lot of pessimism. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Tell your story. Tell your story. Tell your story.
It's cathartic.
No one in my extended family none of the males in my extended family attended college. Very few completed high school. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
All right.
All right, baby. Love you.
Thank you. I was written off by teachers in elementary school who feared me because I didn't have clean clothes and because we couldn't afford haircuts and because I was sleepy in class and I didn't have socks. And teachers who didn't try to understand why I was immensely angry. As a result, I was initiated into a gang. Most of you don't know, I was shot when I was 12 years old in my leg. I don't tell that story. But just to give you an idea of some of the experiences that we had that we went through. Believe it or I developed the wrong set of peers. Not necessarily the wrong set of peers, because I believe that you can learn from every sort of set of circumstances that life hands you. But I had a best friend growing up. His name was Charles. I've talked about him before. Charles, his father was not actively involved in his life. I loved Charles. His father was not actively involved in his life. He was very, very close to our family. It was if I were not home, I was with his family. If he was not home, he was with my family. But Charles was always involved in a ton of trouble, which definitely played out in some of the decisions that I made early on. When I got to high school, sort of the family circumstances started to get worse. We were homeless. As a matter of fact, I tell people all the time, we were homeless all the way up until I think my junior year of college. So that meant that while I knew most of you and was developing relationships with most of you, when my friends would go home to Philadelphia and Chicago or Memphis in their warm homes and this sort of thing, my family and I, we were living in like a one-room motel. 14 people in one space. Opportunities for eating were few and far between. I went to a military high school, and I won't be before you too much longer, but I went to a military high school, and at the particular school in the morning, before you went through the metal detector, they gave us Ziploc bags. And the purpose of the Ziploc bag was for you to take everything that you had out of your pockets, put it in a bag, and go through the metal detector. And usually they kept that bag and they returned it at the end of the day, but the security officers would allow me to use that bag to store food and things, so I can take that home in the evenings, and so that other members of my family would have things that they could eat. It's funny because I tell people, to be honest, I didn't have a room that I could call my own, like a bedroom that I could call my own, until last year, my first year of graduate school. It was very, very liberating. Okay, I feel a little better now. Okay, yeah. And so I guess the sort of emerging question is, well, why aren't you incarcerated, and what happened to Charles, and why don't you have 2 or 3 baby mamas? Why aren't you dead? Why have you not in every way sort of subjected yourself to the typecast given somebody with your set of circumstances? And I have 3 sort of salient reasons for why I think that happened. The first was my parents' philosophy on education. It didn't matter to my mom and dad that they did not finish high school. As a matter of fact, that was the impetus for choosing to do differently, for choosing to think differently in our family. I hated it growing up. My mom would, every Saturday, she would assemble us in this cold, desolate, space, and just talk to us about how making different decisions, how that would play out long term. And at the time, it was very frustrating. You didn't want to do it. You wanted to be outside playing. You didn't understand, Mom, why are you doing this? But she was trying to plant a seed of urgency that you didn't, that there was too much at stake, and that education is the only ticket. It is the only gateway to transforming and redirecting your outcomes. So the first is sort of my parents' philosophy on education, this very intrusive involvement in our academic experiences. We didn't have cars, as you might imagine, most of the time. So if that meant walking 20 and 30 miles to parents-teacher conferences, and walking to graduations to be there to illustrate, when we were inducted into national honor societies and things, like, I care. I am invested and I'm interested in your education. It makes all the world of difference. The second is paternal involvement. I cannot stress how important it was that I had my father there. That is not something that you just say. I tell people all the time, even with all of this, the hardship we had, something that I could not tell you about, I could not look any of you straight in the face and tell you about, is father absence. I don't know what that feels like. I could not tell you what it feels like to be one of the 24 million children every year in America who lives without a father. Despite the fact that my dad did not have steady employment most of the time, he instilled in his sons a positive sense of self, helped us to understand masculinity and sort of how do you make meaning of what it means to be a dad and what it means to be a husband, which has everything to do with why I don't have 2 and 3 baby mamas, among other things. And I guess sort of most important was that he planted the seed of persistence and endurance. You don't quit, Graylin. You don't quit. You don't give up. We've come too far. We've invested too much in y'all. You don't quit. And that is sort of the mind frame that I adopted sort of henceforth, which leads me to my third point. When I got to UAPB, obviously my parents didn't have the loot to create a college fund, so I was very apprehensive about whether or not I'd be able to stay. But remember, education was the only ticket. There was no excuses, and I remember my freshman year getting a letter in the mail from Residential Life indicating that I had about a week or so to leave because I couldn't fulfill my obligations, and I just remember, I just kept reasserting what my father said: you don't quit. You've come too far. And I remember proud little freshman me marched over to Dr. Davis's office in tears and in dirty clothes, and I need help. I need somebody to invest in me. I guarantee you it will be one of the best decisions that you will make. And I am deeply honored and indebted to not only Dr. Davis, but all of my mothers and dads that I see in this audience that persistently, thank you, you are to be commended, who persistently invested in me. And so, my parents' philosophy on education, my father's involvement, and sort of the role that this institution played in cultivating my dreams, my hopes, and it gets challenging for black males when you are sort of infiltrated with all of these images of black trajectories, and you are sometimes it's hard not to subject yourself to that. You heard her say this morning that when that is all you know, and that is when that is what is shoved down your throat, then it's kind of hard not to adopt that. And so it took a lot of work from not only my parents, but this institution is to be commended, because you are essentially re-socializing somebody to develop new norms and new values and new beliefs and new dreams, and that is not to be taken lightly. My best friend from elementary school, Charles, my junior year of high school, was shot 7 times in his stomach and he died. I remember telling you about this story. That's why the work that you do is so important, because it was very likely, given the set of circumstances, the cards that life dealt me, that I could have ended up on that same road and not be able to be here before you today. But because of that intrusive involvement, I can stand here with these razor linings. I can get haircuts now. But seriously, because of that sort of involvement and because of the role that my parents collectively and my father specifically played, all of my adult siblings graduated from high school, 4 of whom are male. All of the adults have pursued some degree in higher education. In fact, my brother Gregory, who graduated from UAPB, is in education, which I think is beautiful and phenomenal in every way. And he was also the first male in the entire family to finish college, and pending a successful defense tomorrow, I'll be the first male in my family with a master's degree. So I need a ton of prayer and a ton of support. I've had a countless number of phenomenal opportunities that I would have never imagined somebody from my background would have ever had. But I think one of the experiences that sort of stands out the most was having the ability to serve in Ghana this past summer. If you've never visited the continent of Africa, there is something transcendental about that very magical and special place. I had the opportunity to serve as a program director, if you will, and we sort of developed a nutrition intervention program to assist women who were HIV positive in hopes of improving their child's health outcomes and improving their nutritional well-being. Lastly, I was accepted to Northwestern University to pursue a terminal degree. Thank you. Thank you. To pursue a terminal degree in marriage and family therapy. Decided to defer that process for a year. So yes, Graylin Johnson is looking for a job. I think I talked to Dr. Okura about that yesterday. But yeah, so I can stand here in peace and very, very humbled by those experiences, knowing that they made all the more difference in the type of scholar that I feel like I've become, the professional that I will be, the husband that I will be, the father that I'll be, and most importantly, the servant that I'll be, because my parents would always tell us that reinforcing the scripture, greater love has no man than to lay down his life for his friends. And whenever my parents could be that poor and have so little and still believe wholeheartedly in the power of serving and giving back, you can't help but be bit by that bug. And so if you wonder why I'm so committed and why I'm so passionate about family and why I'm so passionate about serving black males and improving the academic outcomes of black males, this is why. And so I'm grateful and I'm thankful to you all for listening, for inviting me. I hope I hadn't bored you too much. But thank you so much for letting me share.
Wow. Have we been blessed today? We have. I'd like to thank the entire panel for your presentation and the phenomenal job that you all did, and for sharing with us the work that you do every day with our black males. I'm going to ask Dr. Johnson if he would come at this time to make presentations, and while he's coming, I will like to share just one personal account. When Graylin graduated, I gave him a graduation party, and I said, "Are you all on your way?" And he said, "Miss Burrow, it's like a whole lot of us." And I said, "Okay." He said, "No, I'm talking like a whole lot of us." And I said, "Well, we're ready for you." And when they drove up, I thought they would never stop getting out of the van. They just kept coming. And it was so beautiful because what we see in Graylin, every single one of his siblings are humble, they are respectful, they're grateful. His parents are the same. So this is certainly a pure product.
Again, I want to join you in extending appreciation to our panelists and to Dean Burrow. At this time, I have the pleasure of presenting a token of appreciation to our panelists. Mr. Moody, would you join me here, please? On behalf of the Planning Committee for the Mary Benjamin Conference on Educational Access, making the P13 connection, presented to Karen Moody, North Little Rock, Arkansas, 2011. We appreciate you so much. Thank you. Great. Mr. Johnson, would you join me here, please? The script reads the same, but Mr. Johnson, I just want to say to you how much we appreciate you. Thank you for sharing with us, and thank you for the work that you're doing and the work that you're going to do. Thank you. All right, good. Mr. Washington? It is my pleasure to present this token of our appreciation to you, Mr. Washington, for your contribution. Appreciate you.